Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Clark Barn. I'm gonna bring you up to speed on what we got going on here and on the Jeep project. A lot of you have been following on Facebook, the pictures. I said I was gonna do a video, so I'll do a video here and bring you all up to speed on that. And my son made a comment that maybe I should do multiple videos to bring you all up to speed as we do things going through the project step by step. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. But I think today we'll get you brought up to speed on what I've done so far, just from the still pictures that I posted, and let you know what's going on here at the barn. That's what we call it, my shop. I got a 4,000 square foot shop here. Lots and lots of projects going on, from motorcycles to building stuff here in the barn. And let's get started, and I'll just kind of give you a rundown on what the shop's like here. There's some pictures there. This is my son, the one that gave me the idea to video. He was helping me change an engine out on my cousin's car back in the day. That kid there is almost 30 years old. And there's some other projects. I did that car. It's an original 78 Magnum with a XE with T-tops. That was a nice car. That's me. I was about 19 or 20, shooting a car there outside in the yard. My grandfather looking over me, making sure I'm doing everything right. And there's me and my other son working on the engine of the AMX, which is that car I did there. That took a lot of years and a lot of money tracking down the parts for that. That's what the car looked like in '72. And that's the original dealership, Wolfer AMC, right here in Venice, where the car came from back in the day, in the 60s. So anyways, this is the shop, or what we call the barn. I'm in the process of building a bar over here, nice sized bar and kitchen. So I got that going on, and a little sign there my wife made: what happens in the barn stays in the barn. That's true. So meeting table for the guys from the motorcycle club, and it just goes on and on and on all the way back in there. So it's just a big shop, lots of cars in here, lots of projects. So the one I'm gonna talk about, bring you up to speed on, is this Jeep project that I'm working on. And as you saw from the pictures, sorry about the noise if you can't hear me too well, I got fans going on in here. So you saw from the still pictures, you've seen I've already, when I got this Jeep, it was a full Jeep, was not running. It's a 1946 CJ2A, or civilian Jeep Model 2A. The originals were 1941 to 1945. They were either MBs, which was the Willis designation for the military, or the GPW, which was the Ford designation for the military. But the design, no matter who built them, whether it was Ford or Willis, the design came from Willis. And Willis really made and it is pronounced Willis. It is not pronounced Willys. Willis, when they designed this, their engineers, they really hit a home run on it. And it so much, in fact, that Ford, the W in GPW stands for Willis Design. Ford had to put that in their designation because it came from Willis. These are very simplistic vehicles. They had to be turned out quick, cheap, and fast, and easy to use on, easy to work on, for the lowest common denominator of education for the GI in the field, in the mud, in the rain. I mean, all sorts of conditions. So I mean, there's only like maybe 6 or 8, 10 different size bolts on this thing. Came with a very limited tool pack. And everything was so simple to work on. These things are actually, they're just a lot of fun because they're so simple. And after the war, Ford said to hell with this, and they went back to making cars that, you know, the luxury cars of the day, and the cars that they were really making money on, their bread and butter. Willis actually kept producing these for decades after the war. They saw a need for it. The GIs loved them. As they were coming home from the war, they wanted them for their ranches and their farms. So Willis kept making them. And the first version, the 46 CJ, or civilian Jeep Model 2A, that's this one here, they actually made it with all kinds of farm implements, everything from, you know, snow plows to, you know, hydraulic. They had hydraulic PTOs that you could hook implements up on the back of them. You could put track systems on them. I mean, these are really, you know, kind of like a Swiss Army knife for your farm or your ranch. So what I'm going to do, I'll let you know what the plan is. I got this project. I've been looking for one for a while. And I got this one from my good buddy, retired Senior Chief Bill Lamb. He actually found it up in the panhandle of Florida for me. And he made arrangements to pick it up for me, and then I went and got it from him. And so the frame's fairly good. I mean, you can buy these anywhere from a few $1,000 up to, you know, fully restored to the way they looked at the year they were produced, like $25,000. But I wanted to buy one that cheap, that I could restore myself, have the satisfaction of restoring it myself. I didn't want to buy one already done. So we found this 46, and it does have a couple issues with the frame. Back here by the cross member, the shock mount, you can see the frame was actually cracked, and they plated it here and welded it. Well, I'm going to clean all that up, and we'll redo that, and it'll be good as new. They had welded on some extra supports here for the back of the Jeep and on the other side. I've already cut them off. I got to grind these welds down. So the plan for this is we're going to, it will be a 1946 CJ2A chassis and drivetrain, but I want to make this a military version. So I'm going to have a 1945 MB body made that it will fit this CJ2A frame. So the rolling chassis and drivetrain will all be 46 CJ2, and the body, everything that you'll see up on top, will be 1945 MB military Willis. You know, that probably pisses a lot of the purists off, and I, you know, believe me, I think you should be pure on the things that you can be pure about. You know, put stuff to concourse condition. But this isn't one of those. This thing is too far gone, and it would cost me a ridiculous amount of money to make it a pure 1946 CJ2A. So my estimate is about $12,000 that it's going to take to completely redo this, which is, you know, that's cheap compared to what I did on the AMX. And you got to think about it, once you're done, I'll have a brand new 1945, 1946 Jeep, 0 miles. And, you know, it'll live for another 50 to 80 years. This thing's 76 years old already. Lived way beyond my lifetime as long as it's taken care of. And, you know, I'm looking for something that looks cool, and it'll be a nice representation of what an original looked like, but it'll just be kind of a resto mod, if you will. So I'm going to walk around the frame here, and then we'll talk about the axles, the transmission, and all that. And this is a bring you up to speed video, where we at to date. And then in the future, as I do things, you know, like the steering column and, you know, the frame welding and all that, and rebuilding the axles, I'll do separate videos for those. So this, the body was very different. The CJ2, from the untrained eye, they looked the same. as the 41 to the 45 MBs, but they were very different. Like these had tailgates. The original MBs and the GPWs did not have tailgates. They had toolboxes on those over the wheel wells. These did not have toolboxes. The bumpers were different. These were riveted onto the frame, where the other bumpers had gussets on them on the front here. They had gussets down here. The back bumper on this, somebody welded a piece of channel on there to make a back bumper, and we're gonna fix all that. The body on this was pretty roached out. It was beyond sweaty. It was roached. It was full of holes. The hat channel underneath that held the wood was all gone. The wood was gone. The hat channel was rusted away. It had a million, if it had one, patch panels on it. So basically I scrapped the whole body. I kept the grill and I kept the hood. We'll do some kind of recycle project with them. Maybe make a little, cool little stand with lights in the headlights or something. I don't know. So what we're gonna do here, this frame still needs a lot of work. Still got to strip some things off of it, like the steering. The drag link you see right there, that's all got to come off. The old master cylinder, the old engine mounts, the skid plate with the tranny mount, that's all got to come off. The cross member there. This bumper, I'm going to grind as you can see, I don't know if you can really see it in the picture, but it's kind of twisted and bent. I'm going to grind these rivets off, get rid of this bumper, and put a 1945 MB bumper on there, and I'm going to put the gussets on it, so it'll have the back here in the back. They originally had a block of wood in here, piece of oak, to strengthen that up. And then there's the hole for if you wanted to put the crank, it went to the crankshaft. You could put a crank tool in there and crank the engine to start it. That's what that is. So we're going to cut this bumper off, put a new bumper on. Absolutely everything is available for these Jeeps. You can even buy these frames brand new for $1,500. A couple different places out there online. You can buy the bodies, you can buy the engines, you can buy the transmissions. Everything you can build a brand new Jeep, literally nut and bolt. Build one, everything from nothing, from different companies out there. I use a couple different companies online. One of them is Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts out west. There's a little plug for him. His parts are really good. They're reasonable in price. So I'm using stuff from him. Anyways, the battery tray, as you can see here, this is one that is actually welded in. The 41 to 45s were bolted in. This one's welded in with rivets. Now the front of this is gone. It came down here and was welded onto this cross member in the front. So this one's gone. I'm going to need to cut it all off. We'll grind this off and clean it up. These are available. It's something like $60 for a tray. And then we'll weld a new one in there. And we got the rivets, those have to come out. This is the battery splash guard. You can see it's roached out pretty bad. This is actually bolted to the frame, and this kept water from splashing up onto the battery. That's replaceable. We'll get one of those. This nut here, I'm going to lose it in the dirt. Master cylinder I already have. This thing was molested a little bit, but not too bad. This piece of metal over here, somebody put this in there and welded it right onto the frame supports, or the body mounts rather, as a spacer, instead of actually putting the actual spacers in there. Bunch of clowns. But and back here, this bumper, as you see in my shadow there, they welded it right to the frame. And this is a square in bumper C-channel. That's not what these are supposed to look like. And then they welded it onto the rear support here, right here. They welded it here. We'll have to cut that. That's not supposed to be welded there. So we'll get a new bumper. Bumper's like 65 bucks. Well, yeah, this stuff here is like gold. EV blaster on something like this. So that's it on the frame. And we got the rear end here. This is a Dana 41 rear end. These springs rather, these are all roached. They'll have to be replaced. We can get a whole new suspension kit. Springs, shocks, mounts, all that stuff. The complete kit. It's like $650, something like that. But this has this is a Dana 41. I'm going to show you in another video. We'll take these hubs off. These are pressed on, and there's a key in there that holds them and keep them from turning on the axle. This particular rear end has with the carrier bearings and the pinion bearings, inner and outer here, and then you got the wheel bearings in here. There's like 6 bearings and races or cups in this. And then the other one, the front axle, this is a Dana 25 or Spicer, whatever you want to call it, but a Dana 25. You can see the tie rod ends there still on. But this axle housing is insane. There's like 12 different bearings built into this Dana 25. This is a mess of work up here. I mean, you've got these knuckles. This is your steering knuckle, and they roll right on these balls. There's bearings inside of here. There's bearings inside your wheel hub there. You got carrier bearings here, and you got the pinion bearings here, and then the more bearings on this side. So we're gonna eventually show you all of that, how to take them apart, how to set the bearings, how to put the seals in. We'll show you videos on all that. Here's the engine. I've got it broke down, ready to go to the machine shop. The head, the crank. We'll do videos on that stuff. A little bit that I've done so far. You saw some pictures on. Here's one of my workbenches. That's a Dana 18 transfer case. That's what all this is. And the rebuild kit. We've got the levers to go into 4-wheel drive and high and low. These are already, so a purist would paint these Jeeps, would prime them with the red oxide primer. So that's one way. When you go to strip down if you're going to get in one of these projects and you strip down a Jeep, you find the red oxide primer. That is a sign that it could be original, or that somebody wanted to imitate the originality and do the red oxide. I don't. It's just a personal preference. I like the gray. This is an epoxy primer. I will tell you, you guys know what you're doing out there. If we had epoxy primers back in the day, we would have a lot more older cars on the road than we do now. Epoxy primers, that's the stuff that's gonna help protect the car, make it go a little further in life. But this is the Dana 18 transfer case, all of this stuff. We got new bearings and rebuild kits, new gears, new bearings and braces on there. This is a T90 transmission housing. This actually goes on the other workbench where the transmission parts are. But this stuff, when I open these up, the transmission and the transfer case and all that, when I opened it up, you saw in the pictures, they were just, these gears, everything was just swimming in rust. So I was able to clean a lot of these up. You gotta inspect these teeth. Like this one, I'll probably have to change. This is your intermediate gear. If you can see on some of the teeth, they're pitted. Now, this, you know, if you were in a jam, you could probably use this because none of the corners of the teeth, you want to look at now these rounded corners here, these are normal on this gear. But if you had rounded corners on these teeth here, or chips, depending on how bad they are, you could use a file and fix them. But if they're just chewed up too much, you need to replace this gear. This shit is not cheap. If you want to replace these, this is about $150 gear. And I will probably replace this one just to, you know, I just want my gears to look better than having all these pits in there. But I'll show you the cluster gear out of the transmission. Go over here to the transmission and engine tables. So this is the this is the table that has the engine parts, the cam. If you can see the cam, if you can get in here, like these cam lobes, you know, they're wore pretty good. So I'll put a new cam on there, in there. The lobes, the lip points on the lobes got wear. So we'll change them out. Nice thing about this, which we'll talk about in the engine rebuild video, the bores were standard bore. This thing the engine had been opened up. Some of the springs were backwards, lifter springs. But the bores were standard, hadn't been rebored. The bearings were all marked standard, so they hadn't been oversized or undersized. So we'll talk about that on the engine when we do the engine. But there's my gasket kit for the T90. So literally everything's available for these. This is the original spring for the shifter. Here's the new spring. So everything is available for these things. You want to, so when we're talking about gears though, this is the original shaft that came out of the T90. And I'll just put it down here, we can see. So could you reuse this? Maybe. You do some little cleaning on there, get some, like, there's where a bearing rides. You get some, you could probably polish this up and it would work in a jam. This shaft is like, I don't know, 80, 100 bucks. Now this little input shaft here, you can see there's marks there, these shadowy marks. That's from little needle bearings that ride on there, and there's some pock marking in there. And again, you don't want to put that back in your transmission like this, okay? You want to clean all that crap up, because if you put that back in there like this, that's just going to eat up those bearings in no time. So you want to clean that up and polish it, and you could probably reuse this. But again, I'm replacing it, and here's the replacement. I'll put those side by side. It's a big difference. See, these surfaces are all smooth. There's no pock marks. You know, see from here, these pock marks. That's from water and shit getting in there and rusting in between the shaft and the bearing. And like there's your needle bearing, where your needle bearings ride. These are smooth as glass. All right, so I'll put this new shaft in there. I'll stick this one on the shelf and, you know, just keep it for, you know, a rainy day. Maybe another Jeeper will need one, and I don't know. But I don't want to throw it away. So we'll put the new shaft in there. And then we'll go on here. So there's your guts, if you will. This is the clutch throw out bearing, the clutch stuff. This is your oil pickup that goes in the front of your T90. Here's what's left of the needle bearings and the snap rings, the originals. You can see the water, you know, bearings don't like water. You can see what's left of them. This is all the trash.